Welcome to this week's Versal community session. I'm Anshuman from the community team here at Versal. You have probably seen me around the community space answering questions. For those of you who are watching this on X, you can join us on the community.versal.com to interact and ask questions. If this is your first time joining one of our sessions, you can't see the chat. No worries, just sign in with your Versal account from the top of the page button called sign in. And once you navigate back to this page, you'll see an option to click going. Click there and you'll see a chat box where you can type your questions. We'll have some time at the end of this session to do Q&A. So be sure to drop your questions and we'll pick them up at the end. Just a reminder, if you're going to use the chat box, be respectful of each other's privacy and follow our code of conduct to create a safe space for everyone. Today, we have Malvika with us. She is the product manager at the observability team at Versal. Hi, Malvika.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction, Anshuman. Hello, everyone. It is so lovely to virtually meet you. I always love engaging with the community. So I'm really excited to be here. And hopefully I can answer some of your questions about Vercel observability. I'll go through a little bit of a presentation, and then at the end, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So thank you so much. I'm going to, sorry, go ahead. So I'm going to assume that most people here already know what observability is, but just as a quick explainer in case you don't, observability, like the kind of lowercase observability, is really just, I think, like what we call any kind of tool that collects raw metrics, logs, traces, all of your raw data about the infrastructure and your application that is running, and then usually observability tools will ingest all these metrics and provide you with the ability to see dashboards, the raw metrics themselves, explore those raw metrics themselves, see kind of aggregate data and dashboards, and then monitor performance, reliability, and security of your application through additional tools like alerts. And so that's kind of what I would think of as the high-level category of observability tooling. And here at Vercel, really, we want to give you the flexibility and control over the observability tools that you use for your application. If you're running a production-grade application, you're going to want observability so that you can make sure that your application is performant and reliable and secure. And you might be using a third-party tool already where you might be sending your front-end logs from Vercel. Perhaps you've got your back-end is containerized. Maybe that's in AWS. You've got a tool where it's collecting logs from a range of sources. And so you can collect all of the raw metrics and send that to your third-party observability tool, or you can use Vercel's native tooling. We really want to make sure that, out of the box, Vercel is really easy to use. And so we want to make sure that the tooling we provide gives you a great developer experience, and the applications that you build and deploy on Vercel, you really want to have, I think, both the assurance that you've got a great application that's on Vercel, and so we give you the data to kind of see and believe that we're doing a great job at Vercel, and also make sure that you have the assurance that, if issues arise, you can address them. And we really want to make sure that that has a great developer experience. So at a high level, that's really our approach to observability. And I'll start there. And so kind of digging into the native tooling, one of the things that I think is really important with our approach to native tooling is this idea of framework aware. One of the differences between Vercel and, say, third-party observability tools is that we actually know your application. We built your application. And so that gives us an opportunity to actually give you much deeper context, especially if you're using Next.js on Vercel. I think this is true of many frameworks, and we want to give first-class support to a range of frameworks. But Next.js in particular is something that I think there's just a lot of opportunities for you to really get, I think, even deeper context around the application. And so whether that's logs or dashboards, or even just your ability to create custom views and query your data, we really do want to make sure that it's something that really exposes some of the kind of framework level primitives and elevates that so you can really understand what's going on in your application. So our native tooling spans what I think you would normally get with any kind of observability tool. You've probably used the runtime logs page. I think it's one of the most commonly used pages in the Vercel dashboard. But on the runtime logs page, you can view all your runtime logs. What that means is if there's a function execution, then that will show up on the runtime logs. It doesn't show all of your HTTP requests. So it's not every single request will show up on the runtime logs page. I think sometimes there's confusion there around what shows up, but anything that results in a function invocation will show up on the runtime logs page. And on the runtime logs page, there's a lot of deep context, and we'll go into a demo later if we have time, but I just wanted to kind of speak to some of the functionality that we have within our observability suite. And so if you've not already used the runtime logs page, it's worth checking out. You can then see, I think it's helpful both when you're building an application and you're debugging how it works, you can sort of trace through the request and function execution. And then when you're actually running live in production, you can get a view into all of the traffic and some of the issues and errors that arise while you're running your production traffic. Sorry, your production application. Second, with Vercel Observability are some of the out-of-the-box dashboards. You can visit the observability tab. Again, we'll do a demo and a little bit later. But we have a lot of out-of-the-box dashboards and visualizations you can use right in the Vercel dashboard, so that you don't have to go off and build like, here's my traffic from all of these raw metrics and kind of aggregate all of this information yourself. Our hope is that you could get started immediately, put an app into production, and have all the visibility you need to actually run that application with what we have out of the box. And so that's a little bit about some of the dashboards that we have. If you want to create your own dashboards, well, really I would say what we have in our notebooks today, you can create your own custom visualizations, explore your data quite deeply. And so actually on the dashboards that we do have, every one of those can be further explored. You can view the query that makes up those charts in the dashboard. And I'll wait till the end to do a demo. But if you kind of go into that and explore, you can really create your own custom visualizations and aggregations to then monitor that and come back to that later whenever you want. And then lastly, I think, which is something we just shipped yesterday, which I'm really excited about, are alerts. And this is, I think, one of the key pieces to observability that, what was one of our gaps that we've previously had. And I know it's been a big feature request. So I'm really excited about having alerts. You don't need to be logged into the dashboard all the time. We now will send you alerts if we detect any anomalous activity on your application. And we'll go into more details later about the specifics of what we've shipped. But I think this is what I'm very excited about. So that's our native tooling. And then I think on the other side, which I talked about, which is exporting data with Vercel Drains. We actually recently shipped this in September. We previously had just log drains, and we've expanded that. So if you've been using Vercel, you might have been historically using log drains. But I think, as I had mentioned earlier, we want to give you flexibility and control. You might not want to use our native tooling, and that's fine. This is very much a choose your own adventure. And especially as we grow our product portfolio, and there's a lot of different kinds of infrastructure that you can use from Vercel, I think it's important that we also give you control over your data, and you can choose where you send that and how you analyze it. So with Vercel Drains, you can send logs, traces, web analytic events, and speed insights data points. So pretty much all of the raw data that we collect at Vercel that powers our native observability tools, you can take all of that and send it to any observability tool. And we have some integration partners as well, so that it's very easy for you to set this up in a few clicks. Awesome. So I will go into demos later of some of the stuff I talked about. I know it's really hard, especially with observability products. It's hard to understand, dashboard of what until you see it. But before we do that, I wanted to go over some of the new things we've shipped. And I will do some mini demos, actually, as I talk about some of the new things we've shipped. But giving a quick preview into one of the things we've shipped, as I said, just yesterday, our anomaly alerts. This is something we launched just yesterday. It's in public beta, and it's available to every customer, every pro and enterprise customer who is subscribed to Observability Plus. So alerts, they're not available kind of for free with the free version of Vercel Observability, but if you're subscribed to Observability Plus, you can get alerts. And this allows you to monitor your app in real time. We send notifications by email or Slack, and we also support webhooks, so you can receive your alerts in any destination. So if you want webhooks and you want to send them to, or you can use your webhooks if you want alerts in, say, PagerDuty. You can easily set that up with the raw webhook payload. And so what we actually learned on today is any kind of unusual spikes in either a key billable metric or 5xx errors. And so this is just the beginning of what we're shipping. As I said, this is currently a beta feature. You can expect a lot more detections. We've got planned later to include alerts on performance degradations, a wider range of anomalies. And really, we always appreciate your feedback. So if you can reach out to me or the community, or on the community channel. Please let us know if there's anything you want to see. This is a public beta, and we really want your feedback. So I would just say we'd love to know more about what are some of the gaps with what we've got today and what you'd like to see next. With that, I will do a quick demo. Actually, I'm going to stop. Sorry, this is why I'm not doing a bunch of demos live. Going back and forth between a presentation and a demo is tricky. Awesome. So I'm going to show you 2 examples of alerts. Do you see my screen here? So this is one example of an alert. This is an error alert for the Triangle Company on example app. We've seen a spike in 5xx errors. And here we can see, as I said, there's the raw query that we can explore. And so this is what our query builder looks like. And that allows us to kind of go in and further explore it right there. We also kind of have a bit more context around what we've seen over the last 24 hours versus what is happening during the anomaly. We can find all the relevant error logs, and you can then view those specific logs in the runtime logs tab. And should there have been an actual external API call and failures there, we'd surface that here. So that's an example of what the error alerts look like. And I'll also show you, actually I've got to reshare. Show an example of what a alert looks like for a usage anomaly. So this is an example where we've seen a spike in fast data transfer. And I know this has been a stressful scenario where maybe your application is receiving a spike in traffic, and we see a spike in things like edge requests and bandwidth like FDT, and you want to know that immediately. Again, with these anomaly alerts, you can quickly look into this and get more information around what's happening here, and then further explore the data. And this allows you to then take any corrective action. If this is legitimate traffic, then that's not an issue. If it is a security maybe there's an attack going on and it's a sophisticated attack, you might want to add a firewall rule. You can then take further action, or maybe you've made a bad deployment change and you need to revert that. Those are all the different kinds of action that you can take kind of from this original usage alert. But something we found from some of the customers we've been testing with in the limited beta has been that these are really useful as a first signal into something is wrong with my application. So yeah, that is a little bit of a sneak preview into alerts. I'm also going to do a quick demo, as I had mentioned, around how you can set up alerts. So as I mentioned, you can subscribe to either email notifications, and you can manage your email notifications here. And I'll just make a note too on the email notifications. By default, anyone who's a team owner of a project will automatically be subscribed to receive alerts. So if you're a team owner and you want to receive alerts, you don't have to take any action. If you're a team owner and you don't want to receive alerts, you can just change your settings and you can not receive those messages. And then if you have a different kind of role and you do want to receive notifications by email, you can just go into the notification setting and change that. We also support Slack, as I had mentioned. So we have the directions here on how to set up the Slack account and configure all of that. As long as you have the kind of Slack workspace permissions in your actual Slack application to then install an integration, you should be able to use that. And then lastly, we have webhooks, and you can set up the raw webhook, and we'll make a post request in whatever destination you want. And this is really useful. I think, I find for a lot of teams, you might want to create your own custom alerts and filter alerts, or maybe you want to send it to destinations that aren't supported today by Vercel, or you use whatever tool you use for your own incident response. I think generally webhooks are a really easy way to do whatever you want with it. And we know that all our customers are developers, so the freedom is yours to get alerts how you want. And so that's just a quick overview on alerts. And we can answer any questions in the Q&A about that. I'm going to go back to my presentation. Awesome. So one of the things I had also mentioned was Vercel drains. I won't do a demo of this, but if you go into your settings tab, you'll see a page called Vercel drains. And from there, I think it's quite self-explanatory. You can follow the steps on how to set up a drain. But this actually is quite important because you can now export your Vercel data into any third-party observability tool. We've always had log drains, so you can always export your raw logs. But I think it's quite important now that you can also export open telemetry traces, web analytics data. That's been a big one for a lot of customers. And then your speed insights data points as well. You no longer just have to rely on the reports that we have in the Vercel dashboard for web analytics and speed insights. You can send that to any destination and analyze it there. And if you've got monitors, say, set up in, Datadog, you can monitor some of the speed insights data points there, which I think is really powerful. Yeah, so this is another important thing. If you're not already using, it's definitely worth checking out. And maybe just a quick note on some of the other stuff to come. We're continuing to make improvements here, and I think one of the things we've gotten a lot of feedback in the past is just having more granular filtering rules on what you do send out and export. So that's really what's coming up next, is being able to have head sampling rules on the drains, so that you can identify not just by what project you want to send certain metrics out, but you can then identify the route and then set custom sampling rates by route, et cetera, so that you can really that way you're only sending out and exporting the data that you really want visibility into. Awesome. And so the last kind of, I think this is sort of a catch-all of things that have come through recently that I think is important is, I showed you kind of quickly Query Builder. I think we're always making improvements is really all to say here. We're always adding more data that you can explore and understand in Query Builder, that, whether that's bot verification data. So if you're curious to see more about some of the bot traffic that you have going to your application, you want to see the user agents and whether or not it's like real Googlebot or spoofed Googlebot, or similarly it's Claude, or like a threat actor pretending to be Claude. You can see that in Query Builder. We also have more data now about external API requests. This is really valuable for any AI builders who you might be making external API requests to model providers, and you want to really understand the latency that some of those external API requests are adding into your application. You can now query kind of different percentiles of the time to first byte for those external API requests. And we've also just improved the UX, expanded the custom visualization types, really so that you have a much better experience using the query builder. Awesome. And so with that, that's a little bit of what we shipped. I'll turn it over to a Q&A. I don't know if you've got any questions from the audience.
Thanks, Maluga. This was really amazing. I think we have got a few questions. So I'll firstly start with what are some of the main limits on each of the plans in observability and compared to observability plus? So could you explain a little bit?
Yeah. So one of the main differences between observability and observability plus is data retention. So with the pro plan, you get 1 day of data retention out of the box. You get 3 days if you're an enterprise customer out of the box, and then you get 30 days with observability plus. And that's because you get charged for the ingestion and storing of those metrics that you collect over that period. So one of the main big differences is data retention. Another important limit is actually just some of the dashboard features that you can see. So both in the runtime logs page and on the observability tab, there's a lot more features and functionality, and more advanced views of data that you can unlock if you have observability plus. Query builder, as I had mentioned, the ability to granularly query that data and fully explore all those raw metrics. That's something that's behind observability plus. And as I had mentioned, some of the dashboards that we do show, in addition to the kind of limited data retention, those are actually all break down into little queries. And so with observability plus, you can open up those dashboard visualizations and charts, look into the data, and then further explore that data quite granularly. And then the last big difference between observability, kind of the free version, and the plus version is alerts, as I had mentioned. Alerts are only available today with observability plus, and with that you can get notified and actively monitor in real time any issues that arise in your application. So hopefully that helps answer the question.
Yeah, it does. I think one of the things that as a user pops up into the brain when talking about upgrading or downgrading is, for example, if I'm a plus customer now and I have to downgrade the plan, would I lose the data immediately? Is that something to be aware of?
Yes, you will not lose all the data that you've paid for, but one of the things that I think is worth noting is we actually give you 30 days for free the first time you subscribe. Part of this is because there's a lot of value in going from 3 days of log retention to 30 days of log retention. So we really want to make sure that people are successful when they first start using Observability Plus. So the first time you actually subscribe, you will get 30 days of metrics. When you downgrade after that, though, we'll only show you the metrics that you've collected and paid to collect. So after the first downgrade, say you've downgraded and then you resubscribe like a week later, you will see all the metrics that you previously had access to and had paid for. But if you won't get like a backfill of 30 days if you resubscribe in a week. For that week that you've then been downgraded, you won't be able to see the metrics because you haven't been collecting any metrics. So hopefully that helps clarify. You get 30 days free the first time as a bonus, but then after that, it's really only whenever you actively collect the metrics.
Yeah, this makes sense. I think obviously when I'm upgrading, because observability plus always have more data than the normal plan, I think then there is no chance of losing data when upgrading. So I think that's a no-brainer. So yeah, this helps. I think another thing that I wanted to know, and I think a lot of the customers and lot of the viewers who are watching would like to know, is how Vercel is using observability plus in their day-to-day, because I think Vercel as a company loves to dog food on their own products. So I would love to know. I think a lot of the people would love to know as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of building by dog fooding and I think at Vercel we build everything with Vercel. We build with our infrastructure primitives, we build with our observability tools. And so it's really critical that any internal team building is able to have the visibility they need, either with our native ideally it's all in the native observability tools, and then worst come to worst. And there's some things, we run complex infrastructure. So obviously we have third-party observability tools, and we have quite a few different ones. But we want to make sure that there's no feature gaps in our observability tools to provide us, our native observability tools to provide us with the information we need to debug issues on Vercel, especially with our Vercel applications. And so whether it's engineers on the team, we force everyone to use Vercel observability. And if they don't use Vercel observability, they have to give me feedback and escalate why they had to go to another tool and look up information and what were some of the gaps. And then when we have that, we will flag that. We will make that a top priority to plug. And like that's how we often prioritize our roadmap and figure out what we need to build, is because, we didn't have visibility into solving whatever issue. So that's one way we dog food it. And the other way is actually through our customer support. We want to make sure that our customer support team is able to help customers debug issues. And so similarly, we really, even if like all of our observability tools are fully available to our customer support team, and we also rely on their feedback and input to inform our roadmap and make sure that, if someone's come to them with a support request, that they're able to solve the customer problem using our internal tools. And if there's any gaps in that, we'll continue to plug it. And I think that's really how we've been able to, and I think this is true of any product you build, like the best way to sort of plug in all the feature gaps is by dog fooding and making sure you really use your product. And if it doesn't solve problems for you, it's not going to solve problems for anyone.
Yep, I think I for one love the external APIs metrics that we get in observability. I think it's part of the observability plus, right?
It
That
is.
Yeah, and I really love it because, for example, in my use cases, when I'm using databases that are globally distributed, it helps me see how much I am saving in terms of latency when I'm using a read replica versus I'm just writing. So it does get the theory into practice, and I think I just love that feature a lot. Apart from this, I think while you were discussing about log trains, you mentioned some of the features and some of the very fine grain control that we are bringing to it. Do you have more such features or like sneak peeks for people who are watching? That's something that our team is right now working on and will likely see in future in the few months or few weeks.
Sneak peeks. I didn't prepare a good demo, but
Okay.
next time I come up, I'll make sure I have a good sneak peek. But I think actually, I mean, as I had mentioned, head sampling is a good sneak peek of what's to come there on the drain side. That's really, I think, one of the main gaps there on when it comes to exportability.
Yeah. I think one question as a product manager, I think I would love to know from your devs. You might have heard what is something that companies find very valuable. For example, if I'm using Observability Plus and I want to improve my performance, so what are the areas or what are some of the features that I should explore to get answers faster when using Vercel? So what would your advice be?
I would say, like, explore the query builder. The query builder is so powerful. And I think one of the challenges with I think generally with building anything that's out of the box is that it has to work for everybody, and we don't know the specifics of your application, but you do. Like, what routes are important to you or what paths are important to you, and what your normal application behavior is and what isn't, just from like a business perspective. And there's so much powerful data, as you said, like the external API requests data is in the query builder. There's so much powerful information in the query builder, and there's a lot that's very specific to Next.js as a framework. So these are not metrics that you'll be able to just like easily get in, if you were piping out your logs to, I don't know, Axiom or Datadog, like you wouldn't be able to see that. And so I really think taking the time and it does take a bit of time, but I think going into query builder and seeing some of the metrics and creating your own charts, I really love doing that because it gives me such a great understanding of how these applications are working and what the shape of the traffic looks like. And you can see really interesting insights that way. And then you can save those queries to a notebook. But I think that's one of the best, like, I feel like one of the best ways to really, again, if you have time and you're curious, that's what I would do with Observability Plus.
Yeah, I think a lot of these like nice queries are driven by product use cases. So if you are seeing some bottlenecks, if you are seeing some logs that shouldn't be there, like you're seeing very long requests, I think Query Builder is more like a plug and play thing, or like your own experimentation place. So you can build your own queries. Like no one is stopping you from making custom queries. So I think this is something I also did earlier. Is try to explore what other data I can drive, or like what sort of dashboards I can make with all this data. So I think when you play around, you find out a lot about your own application and the infrastructure running it. So I think these were all the questions that I had, and I think we already discussed that we'll do another session with going through the sneak peeks or more demos. So I'm very excited for that. So yeah, I think for this session, this was pretty much it. And thanks, Malvika. You have been great, and it was an amazing session.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anshuman, for moderating. And thank you, everyone, for coming. It was so lovely to have you here.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We do have another community session later today, which will be with our AI Gateway team. It will be in an hour or so. So be sure to bring all your AI Gateway related questions and like drop them into the chat. Our team will definitely answer them, and you'll get live Q&A time. So this is always beneficial. Until then, see you in the community. Have a nice day.